without further ado, I'd like to introduce the first guest for 2025, Ross Taylor. How are you, mate?
Hey, lovely to see you, Byron, and thanks for having me with all your mighty followers. That's great.
Um, well, thank you. We've done a little bit over the last couple of years, so
Yeah, we
it's
certainly have.
been a little fun little journey on the Construction Connect events, and
Yeah,
learnt quite a
yeah.
lot from you. And I've followed you for many years, um, but I'd love to know, and the audience would like to know, how did you first get into the building and construction industry?
Oh, well, it's pretty. It was. I didn't have much choice because I think I first got involved when I was 7 on holidays with my dad, who was a very well-known national waterproofing kind of contractor,
Yep.
and Theo Taylor. And he was very prominent in the industry. But when I was just a small lad, I used to go on holidays with my dad, and I'd be. I remember my first job was when I was 7, and I was on a progress grinder doing epoxy flooring in a factory at Cooranbong, New South Wales, where they make sanitarium products, and did holidays and so forth, and then drifted into the company, the family company, when I was 18. So suppose I'm bringing up my 60th year of being involved in applying coatings, membranes, or being involved in repairing buildings. So that's my background with the thing. I've not been in any other industry, but I have gone from the contracting side of 20 odd years, 25 years as a waterproofer and repairing buildings around the world, actually, embassies and so forth,
Yep.
into consulting for the last 30 years, into the dark side. Yeah, and doing forensic work, doing legal work, suing builders and suing most of the types of people that might be joining this meeting right now, actually. Um,
So
and
maybe not everyone's your biggest fan, but sometimes I'm sure saying that
yeah, sure.
you've helped people in compromised positions as well.
Well, I think the interesting thing is that that's where you suffer the most pain, is when you get the statement of claim and the lawyer. And then that's when people, I've been staggered at how good the industry can get at reading the BCA and the standards once the statement of claim arrives.
Yeah.
They get real good at reading it. And so the point was, so many times I've worked, for owners, corporations, or lawyers against developers or builders or architects. And when the court case is over, they come up and say, hey, can you come and work with us to make sure we don't have this happen again?
Yeah.
So really leading into the key point is in doing these court cases and repairing buildings, I kept on seeing this recurring pattern of behaviors, the same thing happening over and over again. Yeah. And it just seemed like madness to have that happen.
Yeah.
And so most of my last 20 years or something has been in trying to correct that and being at the front end of the game and reviewing and being involved in the review of designs well before the concrete starts getting poured.
So
Because, go ahead, yeah.
no, sorry, Ross, carry on.
No, only just going to say, I can generally see 90% of the leaks you can see on the drawings, I find,
Yeah,
right?
and the lack of detail is, I think is one
Yeah,
that being become
exactly.
more predominantly aware of, particularly in the last, several years.
Yeah.
So from my involvement in the industry, I really didn't get introduced to the codes and standards until well after the 15-year mark after being on the tools.
Yeah. Yep.
Obviously you're introduced into the industry, well before I was, respectfully.
Yeah.
And so how was it done back then? Was it just one person showing you how to do something and you learn and then you invent things on your own, and then
Yep.
there's no really big enforcement to study the codes and standards, and there probably would have been a limited amount back then in the early days. So how did we go from when you started,
Yep.
to where we are now? And, do you think the problems were similar back then, but because we weren't building to such a great scale, it wasn't
Yep.
on the landscape as vivid as it is now?
Well, you know what? I think it's not changed that much.
Yeah.
See, as a contractor, and I was on the tools for 6 or 7 years. I learned, my father believed strongly in that, and it was a great asset to be on the tools and pumping polysulfide sealants day in and day out, and on a 6-inch angle grinder on a swinging stage 20 stores up. It's a great way to learn how you don't want to be jackhammering concrete to fix things. Yeah, but it hasn't changed much, because I've got my sons who are grown-up sons. They're working on building sites in Class 1 in Resi. They never see standards or the building code. Nobody reads that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So in those days, as a contractor, we didn't look at drawings. We didn't look at standards or codes. The architects and engineers did, because that's what they design things by. But it wasn't. It was really only consultants and lawyers and architects and engineers, so forth, that read those things.
Yeah.
Now, that's where we've come to in rewriting the section on water-related things we now call water management in the BCA.
Yeah.
Is to make it more user-friendly, so that an apprentice on the job, on the way to work, can actually read it and understand it. Whereas in the BCA wording over the last 30 years, you've needed a consultant like me to read it, or a lawyer to read it, or to help you understand it, because it's such convoluted language.
It's very convoluted.
Yeah.
The 3740 standard came out, and I first developed a course on that particular standard, which used to go for 5 weeks back then when I initially.
Yes. Yep.
And I'd be delivering the same content, and I'd be confused as I was delivering it. It took me probably 5 series of delivering it to make sure I was teaching it in the correct manner, because
yes,
you can interpret things a couple of different ways every time you read the standard or the BCA NCC.
Exactly.
And so for the punter who's out there, who's, most tradies, they drive in the right lane. They don't want you to tell me too many things at once, because I'm working hard on the tools. My margins not that great. I don't want to have the distraction of having to go through the theoretical component.
Yep.
So it is quite confusing. So obviously, when you initially you had good, breeding into the game through your dad. So I think that's, if you get a lead into the industry in that manner, then that sets you off on the right path, because not everyone enters into the construction industry in that manner.
Yeah.
So how over the decades has your understanding of building performance around water management, what causes water ingress, evolved over the course of your career? Thinking it was all on top, and now you understand it's all, or a majority of it, is subsurface water. So, when was that light bulb moment for you?
Oh, good. Thanks. Well, in doing the document reviews, and I had to learn that from day one. That's 25 years ago, in terms of really understanding how drawings work. But got pretty good at it after you reviewed a couple of 100 buildings, is that you then see the patterns. And I think this is the important thing to stress for those, and particularly the younger ones, is to look for patterns of behavior, or of patterns of design patterns that you can then see and then remember and use. So I was seeing defect patterns. So you could see that the BCA, for example, and I'm calling it BCA because it's BCA Volume 1 is the one that I've spent the time on, not Volume 2, which is, of course, BCA being one of the books of the NCC. Only the Building Codes Board could name a book, give two names to the one book, but there we are. So BCA Volume 1, what I saw was that there is stormwater and surface water mentioned, but there's 95% of the leaks are from subsurface water that goes under the tiles, goes through the topping, goes through the membrane. That's subsurface water. But what I saw was, hold on, that's too limiting, because the stormwater people, being the hydraulic engineers, had plenty of words there for stormwater management. There's a bit on rising damp, but otherwise there was water that enters the building shall not cause damage. Water that enters the building through roofs and walls. Now, so what I was seeing when the drawings was that the BCA was chronically undercooked in terms of its usefulness to the industry.
Yep.
And flowing from it was a reliance on two standards: 3740 for wet area wet domestic bathrooms.
Yep.
And so, but it's membranes for bathrooms, and we've got the 4654 that the membranes for above ground use.
Yes.
Once again, it's all about membranes. And I didn't see any dialogue there about where are the downpipes mentioned, where's the fascia hungata, where's the flashing mentioned. There's a bit of turn-up language, but the real action of managing water is so much broader than just the membranes. It's actually, can the subsurface water get away?
Yeah.
What is the connection between wall and deck? Because that's, so many in the experienced waterproofing and remedial people in the room today will know that, it's the connections to other materials, dissimilar movement, or between differential movement between dissimilar materials.
Yep.
They're the action place. But when you've got a standard that just does membranes, and then you've got a standard and set of conditions for the facade people, what I rapidly came to see was that everybody was in their camp. And with the advent of that wonderful thing called project management over the last 30 years, we've got project managers coming in who very often aren't really trained in details and aren't familiar with, they're very good with managing budget and program, time and money, but they aren't necessarily detailists in how buildings are put up. They haven't built things necessarily. So what we have is everybody in their silos. And there wasn't the connectivity between all the overlap. And of course, the water just loves that. And the water flows in and leaks at the lack of the overlap between the different disciplines. Yeah.
And so it's a good point you make. So if we think about, so we don't really have the different disciplines interrelating each other well from a design and implementation practice. Okay.
Yes.
So I really just classify waterproofing as a flashing. Really, it's part of the building envelope. Okay, depending on where it is, will require the specific type of detailing.
Yep.
But one thing I've noticed when you deep dive into the standards, and they're referencing other standards, that standard, there's no communication pathway from how one should relate to each other. It just says
exactly.
as per 3600 or
exactly.
So it's a choose your own adventure. So you're in the role of the chair of the watershedding community of practice.
Yes.
What is that, and
good.
What is it that you're trying to achieve as a committee?
Oh, cool. Okay, so the first step. By the way, apologies for the very fancy word that the government gave us for this thing. It's really a working committee, if you like.
Yeah.
But since the very essence of the problem was the lack of interconnection, overlap, and understanding, collaboration between structural engineer, architect, hydraulic engineer, waterproofer, facade engineer, where they get kept in their silos by the project managers, and by the drawings, because they all have a different drawing and they have a different way of drawing stuff.
Yeah.
Our first thing to do was to bring those teams together, and that's what we've done with this watershedding community of practice under the Building Commission New South Wales.
Yeah.
And what we said was we need to get all of those people in the room at the one time. And so we have 12 of some of the best minds in the country representing Institute of Engineers, the Institute of Architects, hydraulic engineers. We've got a QS even in the room. We've got a tier one builder quality manager in the room. So you see, we have the disciplines in the room to be able to have a good communication about it. Mm-hmm. We've got representative of the suppliers. We've got Dulux, one of their national specification manager. So we've got a supplier in the room. Yeah. Yeah. And my background is a lot of remedial as well as in design reviews. So that's the first step, was to get that team together and say, how can we reword the BCA? And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, is to say we had to start there. But so I think the answer to your question is one of what did we do and why did we do it? It's about getting a collaboration between designers, who have practical knowledge about how things go wrong. Yeah, have contractor experienced high-rise contractors in the room that have built basements. Not theoretically about how a basement might be built, but just have built them, know the problems. Yeah. So that's what and now we've met for 5 years, every month for 5 years.
Yeah.
To get these documents rewritten to help the industry have a better starting point in a better Building Code of Australia, Volume 1 in particular. Okay.
That's great, because collaboration is a big piece to successful
big
outcomes. And it really
Yep.
fits in that line of building to win, because you can't do it on your own. We have right from design
Bingo.
to contractor, consultant, and consumer.
Yep.
So,
yeah, actually, I'd love to say what I'd like to say is it's about you've got to make sure you're in the right game.
yeah.
And this is a team sport. That's what building is. It's a team sport. It's not snooker. But some people go into it think it's a snooker game. It's one-on-one. Yeah.
Well, it's an interesting point, and obviously you've spent a lot of time with Chandler, and I've got
Yep.
a little bit of time with him, particularly last year, doing the seminars around Australia. And,
Yep.
he coined the phrase, the United States of Australia, where we have a national construction code.
Yep.
But yet it's if each state mandates it through legislation for it to be adopted, and some states do it at different times, some will adopt different parts, and there's obviously different rules. So do you feel that sort of impacts the industry in a negative sense as well, where we have different states beating to a different drum in some contexts?
Well, yeah, I think it's good to stretch the point out to that wider point about states. But the thing about why we started with the NCC or the BCA Volume 1 is that it's a national book.
Yep.
Yes, it's got state exemptions, but by and large, it's a national book. Okay.
Yep.
So I think that's something. Then we have the Australian standards are national books. All right. So I think the state thing, we don't see that as being an issue, except for legislation that varies from state to state about warranties and commitments and all sorts of things like that. That's another story beyond tonight and then what we're talking about. But no, in my field, state by state is not an issue. Interestingly, apparently South Australia pushed back against some of our provisions at one stage. And they said that water doesn't work that way in South Australia, they said. Yeah.
I'm going to leave that one alone, Ross.
So, it's as fun. The politics of the states comes into it, but that's another problem beyond, I think, most of the people in the room today.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got enough to talk about how do we get the trades, the contractors, and the designers in the room at the one time at the right place, and that I think is the vital. If we're talking about what is the shift in the industry, there has to be a much better understanding of the essential need for workshops, design review workshops with all the team around the table on critical details. Fire must have it, but in managing water, you can't do it alone. You need to have all of those players in the room at the one time.
I couldn't agree more. And so we see the builder, the licensed practitioner.
Yes.
Now, in order to build, you must have a license. You must be able to verify that you're continually developing, and CPD register is established just for the builder, and it's the builder's responsibility that everyone who is undertaking a trade on site is suitably qualified to undergo that skill set. But yes, in certain states, some trades require licensing. And in some states they don't. And I'm a big one that getting everyone onto the same page is a similar thing. If we were able to create a national model for trades that would allow trades to go from one jurisdiction to the other because they've got a certain level of qualification, do you think that would be a beneficial thing to the industry or not?
Definitely. You see, at the moment, in so many sites, it's the Wild West. Really, subbies are picked on the basis of price. The builder, I think what you were saying before about that being what builders do is basically bullshit on site. It actually doesn't happen in most sites. The builder is picking subbies very often just on price and availability, right?
Yeah.
They don't know whether they know their stuff or not, very often. I've just been reviewing a building down in Melbourne. It's quite a famous sort of site for a famous client, and blow me down, but they are just, once the developer gets that gets the DA, he's only developed half the drawings. There's not enough details, and then he proceeds to get the cheapest builder, and the builder, to be able to get his margin, he's got to have the cheapest subbies, and they're introducing experimental facade components that subby has never used before. He's coming on the job and say, of course I've used it before. He wants the job, but he has absolutely no knowledge about it. I see that time and time again. Now, just before anybody gets too upset, it's not to say that it's everybody. I'm just saying it's the majority of what I see.
Yeah.
There are exceptions and very good people who use the same subby over and over again. People like Mirvac as a major company, they use the same sort of subbies over and over again.
Yeah.
Is because basically the old model of a domestic house where, a brick veneer house with a pitch tile roof in the suburbs or project homes, where they use the same subby over and over, they got the same drawings, they got the same, the details are worked out, and they have very little defects in that pattern. But particularly the area that we find the billions of dollars worth of damage are in high-rise resi, and that's where those subbies are walking on the site. It's the first time they've used that facade material or that membrane sometimes.
Yeah.
And the builder doesn't know whether they can use it or not. Okay.
So really capturing what is happening on site at each stage from design to handover is ultra important, not only for the builder,
Yes.
but for the subcontractor or trade contractor as well.
Yes.
Because, the thing that's sort of popping up on the landscape, is distribution of liability.
Yes.
If you're not capturing what you're doing and really verifying what the design said, what you used, how you did it,
Yes.
when you did it, who signed off, you're leaving yourself open to who knows what in years to come. And we know, I've always had the time frame of around 4 to 7 years is when we see a waterproofing defect. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it takes a bit longer. Through your experience, and I know it's a little bit hard to cast a blanket, estimate all defects in buildings, but a waterproofing defect, what sort of a time frame, from your experience, do you see as the window?
Well, I regularly get involved in major high-rise buildings, in CBD buildings, where the basements are leaking before the top floor's poured.
Yeah.
Right. We had one building where there was $20 million worth of remedial work done in the first year of the building before the people moved in.
Yeah, that's
right?
that's alarming.
So I regularly find that it's leaking while it's being built. As soon as they turn the dewatering pumps off, the basements leak. And I would say that most buildings in Australia, the basements leak. Yeah, at some point, and many of them are in the first year. Okay,
that's pretty alarming.
Yeah. Now the upper stories, where they aren't as saturated, they might take a little longer. But it's regularly 2, 3, or 4 years. There's major defects, and of course the developer's long gone. The money's been paid. The single-purpose vehicle company has been wound down, and the poor the owners, the residents, and so forth, are stuck with it.
Yeah, it's a nightmare scenario. So
well, it really is. Yeah.
We're coming close to the end.
So what are we going to do about it, Byron? That's the big question. What are we going to do about it?
We're having a crack, mate. You've got to support the government as well, because we know that can be a slow turning wheel.
Okay, so that's what our community of practice has been, is to say to the Commissioner in New South Wales, and now we're going to be advising the Victorian Commissioner, is to say we need to help those guys with good practical information from the field to help them write the right regs. And that's what the BCA changes is all about. And we've been trying to guide the Standards Australia, but I've had limited success there, by the way, but that's another matter. But what we are going to be doing now is getting a collaboration of the industry groups to be having a common practice note published, because we know these guys, a lot of your viewers, they turn up to work, they want to do a good job. We've, as an industry, have got to give them better information on all these tricky bits.
Definitely.
And at the moment, there just isn't enough, which is
So,
that's the reason why we're here, isn't it, Byron,
it is
tonight?
why we're here,
Yeah?
mate. It's, the
Okay.
first level of change is probably awareness, and I think,
Yeah.
off the back of what Chandler did all those years ago,
Yep.
initially, we're
Yep.
seeing a lot of momentum and a lot of awareness pop up from
Yep.
state to state. So
Bingo.
before I really want to sort of tap into, your experience with these last couple of questions. So
Sure,
you've
man.
been in the game for quite a long time.
Yep.
What habits or principles should young engineers, builders, or trade professionals develop early in their careers to help them to really get on the right path to win in the game?
Okay. Step one is they've got to get boots dirty. Okay. They've got to get on site. I'm going into architectural practices and people have never been on a building site. They've never seen concrete poured. And young engineers and project managers, particularly since they're running the joint now, I don't know project managers that have laid, gone in and mixed brickies mud or had some field experience.
Yeah.
So first thing, every business should have field experience for their teams where they go out and even if they're sitting alongside the concreters on pour day and see how the drama in pouring concrete, and they see when they design complex shapes, now these guys have got no chance of getting the concrete in there. Yeah. So first step is, even if your bosses aren't arranging it, go and work weekends on a building site if you're a young professional. Yeah. The tradies in the podcast, well, they're going to get that field experience. But that's the first step. You've got to have the common language of how things are built. All right. That's step one. Now, other habits. Next is understand that it's a team sport. It's not a solo game.
Yep.
Understand how to collaborate, understand how to talk the language of the other participants. Yeah. So a chippy, get to understand the language of a plumber, get to understand the language of drawings. And the third tip would be everybody has got to learn how to draw with a pen. Electric pen, it's fine. They've got to be able to hand draw and express and communicate clearly by hand, not CAD. Then they can share their ideas with each other on site or in the office.
Yep.
They can even share their ideas with themselves at a coffee shop when they're noting how something works. So field experience, collaboration, learn the other language of the other people next to you. And thirdly, learn how to draw by hand. Okay.
I couldn't agree more, but particularly with the field experience. So getting on the tools,
Yep.
There's quite a few consultants that are out there that have actually never touched a product that they're specifying. And I'm like,
shouldn't be allowed. I got to tell you, I personally think there shouldn't be consultants. One of the best training for a consultant is to be a contractor.
Yep.
So, you've got to have been a contractor to see how things are built, quite frankly. And I know there's people joining the meeting now that are going to get upset with me about that. But that's where you actually get the understanding of the other person's situation. So how do you go to court and then understand what the problem might have been caused by without understanding their situation? Yeah.
So through the lens of Ross Taylor.
Yes, mate.
$4 billion a year we're currently spending on water-related building defects for class 2 to 9.
Yes.
Who knows what the figure is for class 1, but I'm
yes.
tipping it wouldn't be far off. How do we get from where we are today to a much more significantly improved position in 10, 20 years' time? What mindset change or what leadership do we need in the industry to close this gap? Or plug the leak, to use the pun.
Okay, first thing in the area of my expertise about water is we've got to get away from the idea of waterproofing.
Yep.
Okay. Waterproofing denotes that, we'll leave it to the guy with the goo to fix the problem. And so we've got to go to a mentality, and we suggest the word watershedding is more encompassing, which encompasses all the other elements, the shape of the concrete, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
So it is about getting away from something that has basically failed us. The notion of waterproofing will do the job. And as a waterproofing contractor of 25 years, you turn up to the job and you've got a terrible flat concrete, not enough drains. nowhere for the turn up of the membrane to go, you're stuffed. Yeah. Okay. So instead of leaving it to the contractor on the last day to work out and jangle that, it's about everybody taking responsibility early in the design process, their part in the watershedding process, and do that early so that when the guy turns up with a pot of goo, he's got the elements and the condition in which to have a chance of success.
Yeah.
All right. And that's what we're going to cover tonight. So the start of the change in the industry, mate, is your podcast tonight. How about that? We say that.
It's one angle of it, mate. So I appreciate you being on the first ever podcast that I've run for the Build to Win Masterclass series, Ross. I really appreciate you putting your hand up and having a go, mate. I think you know that's what I'm about.
Good. No, it's a pleasure. Look, it's great to be with you, and I think it's a great initiative. So it's an honour to be the first one.